Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to Harvest Moon Farm. My name is Mickey. If this is your first time visiting my channel, welcome. If you have been a visitor before, welcome back. Good to see everyone. Today we're going to be making some Instant Pot yogurt, and I've got several different granola recipes that I want to test out and see if we have a favorite. We're going to start with our yogurt. And now I have two Instant Pots. I have a small one that's just kind of the basic model, and I have a larger one that's got all the different settings and options on it. I have no idea where it's at, someplace in my storage unit, and I cannot get to it. So I'm going to use my smaller one. The small one does not have a yogurt setting. You can still make delicious yogurt in an Instant Pot that does not have the yogurt setting. We just have to do a little modification to our recipe. So the ingredients are very basic, which is part of the reason of making your own. You don't have, I just spilled milk on the floor. You don't have all the additives and preservatives and things like that that you're going to get in a store-bought yogurt. Also, if you have your own milk because you have a dairy cow or you have dairy goats, this is a great way to use up that milk so that it doesn't just go bad. So we are going to start with a half gallon of milk. I am using whole milk. My gosh, I'm making a mess. I am using whole milk. Whole milk is going to give you the creamiest yogurt. You can use a 2% or a 1%. I wouldn't suggest going lower than that, but you can do that if you would like. The recipe that I'm using also has an optional sweetener using a can of sweetened condensed milk. I am not going to do that. I'm going to sweeten mine with some honey later in this process. All we're going to do now is put the lid on, and we're going to let this warm up. We want to warm it up to 185 degrees. So I'm going to put this on here. You do want to take out your little silicone or rubber sealing ring, because we don't want to, if you've used this before with some sort of savory dish, you don't want your yogurt tasting like that savory dish. Okay, there we go. All right, so we're going to turn this on. Our keep warm setting on this model, it comes on by default, and we want this to sit for about 40 to 45 minutes. We're going to let this go, and then we're going to check this temperature after this 45 minutes is up. So we're going to go ahead and start it, and we're just going to let it go. As I said earlier, I've got several different granola recipes here. I have one from Homesteading Family. I have one from Taste Better from Scratch. I have one from, if I can get a hold of the page, Recipe 10 Eats. And then I have a chocolate granola recipe from Erin Lives Whole. That one was just because chocolate granola sounded good. So these I'm really just going to use these three different plain granola recipe, or not plain, regular granola recipes, and we are going to just kind of taste test them and see which one we like the best. So this first one is from Homesteading Family, and I'm having trouble seeing today. So I've got my big container of oats here that I got from Azure Standard. So you can use oats that you buy at the grocery store. That's perfectly fine, but we don't want to use steel cut, and we don't want to use the quick cook. We just want the regular rolled oats. So for this recipe, we need 4 cups of oats, and we're just going to mix pretty much everything in this bowl together. Whoops, we don't want our Stay Fresh packet in there. That probably would not taste good. 2. Alright, so there's our oats. The next thing we're going to add is a cup of this recipe calls for pecans, but you can use any kind of nut or seed that you prefer. I am actually going to use pecans. I really like them. We want a cup. And we want those chopped. Now I did buy the chopped pecans, but I'm going to chop them a little bit more. Some of them are fairly large. So I'm just going to chop them so that they're a little bit smaller pieces. I don't want them crumbs or super fine, but I just want some of these pieces a little smaller. All right, so we're going to go ahead and add our pecans into our bowl. We're going to use a 1/4 cup of brown sugar. Then we're going to add cinnamon, allspice, and salt to this dry mixture. So I need to refill my cinnamon. Hopefully I can find it. We should have enough for this recipe. We need 2 teaspoons of cinnamon. Ooh, I'm just going to barely have enough for this recipe. Then I'm going to have to go find it. We need 1/8 teaspoon of allspice and 1/8 teaspoon of sea salt. So there's our allspice, our salt. Now we're just going to stir this all up because we just want to make sure that we mix up all of our spices and our sugar so that it's as well mixed as we can get it in this dry form. My brown sugar had some clumps in it, so let's get those out. I haven't baked in so long, other than when I just started a few weeks ago, that I can't find everything and some of it needs a little love. Okay, actually one more thing. So this one, as I said, is from Homesteading Family, and she said if you want your granola to be more chunky, which I do, then you're going to add any fruit or other mix-ins that would normally go at the end of the recipe in at the beginning, and you're going to bake them when we put the rest of this in here. So I'm going to actually add a little bit more brown sugar because that sugar also is kind of what will help that clump up. So I'm just going to add another spoon in there and we'll see how it goes. So it's kind of a play around and see what works for you. See what's going to make the granola be the consistency and the flavor that you like. So I'm going to go ahead and add in some dried cranberries, and we want 1 cup total. She suggests raisins or cranberries, but you could probably add whatever kind of dried fruit that you prefer. I am going to go ahead and put some cranberries in this. Whoa. Or you could leave the fruit out completely if that's what you prefer. And I'm probably not going to do a whole cup. I think I'm going to do maybe like 1/2 cup. And I'm just not a big fan of raisins in general, so actually I'm going to go ahead and add the full cup. I'm not a big fan of raisins, so usually if something calls for raisins, I tend to leave them out. All right, so we'll go ahead and mix our cranberries in now to the rest of our ingredients. Oh, and we need to preheat our oven to 300. Okay, so next we're going to mix up some butter and some honey. We're going to put it in the small saucepan and we're gonna heat it up until it's all melted and mixed together. So we need a 1/2 cup of butter, or you could use coconut oil, and then a 1/4 cup of honey. And 1 stick equals a 1/2 cup. I'm just gonna go ahead and cut it so that it melts down a little faster. Just put it in our saucepan. A 1/4 cup of honey. And so thankfully I found my honey. And this is raw honey that I got from Azure Standard. Just gonna add that in with our butter. Gonna put it on the stovetop and just let that kind of all melt down until we can mix it together really well. I want to put that on kind of a medium heat so that it doesn't burn if we lose track of time. So while that's melting, I am going to get my cookie sheet ready. So I've got a cookie sheet and some parchment paper, just so I don't have to clean up such a mess on my cookie sheet. Okay, so our butter and honey is all melted. So what we're gonna do now is just pour it over the granola mixture or dry mixture and stir it up really well. You wanna make sure and get as much of that melted butter and honey in our oats as possible, and our seasonings and all of our other ingredients, so that this will have a chance to clump up. Okay, so now I'm just going to pour this on my cookie tray. One of her tips was to kind of press this down because this is going to help it clump up. All right, our oven's at 300 degrees. We're going to go ahead and put this tray in there, and we're going to let it bake for 10 minutes. Then we're going to give it a little stir, press it back down, and bake it another 10. Okay, so our first 10 minutes is done. So we're gonna kind of stir this around. And she said it's kind of a balancing act, so you don't want the granola so thick that it doesn't get done on the bottom, but you want it thick enough that it helps build up those clumps so that you have some bigger chunks of granola. So I'm gonna use my wooden spatula here to just kind of press that down again. And then we're gonna give it another 10 or so minutes. We want it to be a golden brown and kind of crispy when we are done. And the first step of our yogurt is almost done. Got about 8 more seconds. Then we're gonna take the lid off and we're going to just whisk that up, and then we're gonna set it to heat. Turn that off. So we're just going to whisk this up a little bit. We're gonna put our lid back on. And then we're going to set it to saute. We're going to let it go 30 minutes, and then we'll check the temperature. Oh, goodness, that looks good. I think it might need just a couple more minutes. I don't really know. My oven, I haven't really tested it to see how well it fits to the temperature that it actually says it is. So let's just do 5 more minutes and we'll see how that looks. That should be good. All right. Oh, that looks much better. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and just take this pan out. So there's what we have, and I'm just going to set it over here on a pot holder, and we're just going to let it cool, and then we're going to get started on our next recipe. Okay, so I found my candy thermometer. It's not the thermometer I was looking for, but it works. I just keep checking our milk to see if it's up to 185 yet, because that's when we're going to stop the heat and do the next process. Okay, so while that's still heating, we're going to start our next granola batch. This one is the healthy granola. This one is a fairly basic granola. It is also the lowest calorie granola, so that's why I wanted to try that one. So this one, as I said, this one comes from tastebetterfromscratch.com. So we want first our oats. For this one we need 4.5 cups. Next, we're going to add some raw sunflower seeds, and we want 1/2 cup. We want 1/2 cup of our sunflower seeds. Okay, this recipe calls for unsweetened flaked coconut. I accidentally grabbed the sweetened. That's fine. We want 1 cup of that. There's 1/2. There's 1 cup of our coconut. 1 cup of sliced raw almonds, and 1/3 cup of raw brown sesame seeds. Now, I could not find the brown sesame seeds. They were out of the bagged seeds, so I just had to buy one of these little containers. It's white, but that's okay. That's what I'm going to use because that's what I have. Use 1/3 cup of our sesame seeds. Okay, and I bought whole almonds because I was planning to use some for some other recipes, so I will just, this recipe calls for slice. I'll just kind of chop some up, but we need 1 cup. Got the cup of almonds all chopped up. Okay, for this recipe we need to heat our oven to 325. So I'm going to turn it up and let it finish preheating. Alright, so now I'm just going to stir up all of our dry ingredients in this bowl, same as with our last recipe. And then we're going to make our syrup. Okay, that light from that skylight really makes a mess of these videos. So, what we want in here is 1/3 cup of butter. Or you can use coconut oil. I'm going to go ahead and cut this one in pieces too. This was in the freezer, so it's still pretty hard. This will just help this kind of melt down a little bit faster. So we're going to put this in our pot. So we had 1/3 cup of butter. We want to also add 1/3 cup of brown sugar. 1/4 of a cup of honey. A 1/4 teaspoon of salt, some vanilla, and some baking soda. Okay, we want to go up to just the salt, and we need 1.5 teaspoons. One and a half. All right, we're going to turn on the heat to a medium setting, and we're just going to stir this until it all kind of melts together, which is our butter, our sugar, our honey, and our salt. We're gonna, oh goodness, our milk is definitely too hot. What we're going to do now is go ahead and take our inner container out. We're going to set our inner pan here on a hot pad, and we're going to let this cool down to 110 degrees. This is going to take a little while. All right, so our mixture for our syrup is almost all melted, and then we're just going to let this keep going until we bring it to a boil. So our honey, sugar, butter mixture is boiling now. We're going to remove it from the heat, and we're going to add in 3/4 of a teaspoon of baking soda and 1.5 teaspoons of vanilla. We're going to stir that in. All right, we're going to go ahead now and pour our syrup over all of our dry ingredients. Oh, this pan is heavy. Just like with our other recipe. And then we're going to mix that all around. And then we're going to use our wooden spoon, and we're just going to go ahead and mix this up, making sure that our dry ingredients all get mixed up in that sugar and butter mixture. All right, I hope you guys can see me. The skylight is causing problems, and I don't have any way to cover it, so hopefully I can adjust this image when I edit. All right, so I'm going to pour this into a cookie tray with parchment paper. You can always grease your pan if you don't have parchment paper, but this just makes the cleanup a lot easier. I'm going to spread it out into an even layer, just like we did before. Smash that down. And now we're putting it in our 325-degree oven, and we're going to bake this for 8 minutes. While that batch is in the oven, I'm going to go ahead and start on the 3rd batch of regular, just the non-flavored granola, or the non-chocolate, I guess. So we need 4 cups of our oats. Good thing I like granola, because I'm going to have a heck of a lot of it. 3 and 4. This one also calls for coconut flakes. If you don't like coconut, you could replace it with more oats or nuts or whatever you want to use. So a cup of the coconut flakes, a cup of raw nuts. You can use any nut that you want, or you can use sunflower seeds or pumpkin seeds. I think I'm going to use pecans again in this one. Between the crazy light from my skylight and the little tiny bit of space I have here, it's getting kind of hard to work. We want 1 cup of raw nuts. think I'll just use all pecans. And I am going to chop these up just a little finer, like I did in the first recipe. And the great thing about these granola, all these granola recipes, is that you can make so many substitutions or additions and subtractions based on what you and your family prefers, what you eat, how sweet you want it, whether you are vegan. You can change some of the ingredients. You can use coconut oil versus butter. So it's very versatile. All of them are. So you can also, you know, make your recipe be whatever you have on hand. And then we need a half a cup of dried fruit. I got apricots. We do also have still some more of the cranberries, but I think I'm going to use all apricots in this one. So we need half a cup, and then I'm just going to chop these up. And then I'm going to have plenty of ingredients left to make more granola, although I'm not going to need it obviously anytime soon, but I will have plenty to make more granola, and I can just adjust my ingredients based on whatever I've got left on hand. I do have a bunch of freeze-dried cherries from the ones that I picked with my friend. I think I'll stick to just the apricots today. And our milk is getting close to being down to 110, so we'll be able to work the next step of our yogurt here pretty soon. Oops. All right, almost done with our apricots. Now we can use a teaspoon of our favorite spice. Suggestions were cinnamon, pumpkin spice, or gingerbread mix. Okay, there's our timer going off. We're just going to stir that around and smash it back down like we did with the first recipe, and put it back in for another 8 to 12 minutes. I was not able to find the rest of my cinnamon. I know it's got to be up here in my apartment somewhere. I think it's in my little makeshift pantry that I have that I need to reorganize. Which I might bring you guys along with me when I reorganize that. It's a mess. I have a friend who just moved into a new place, and his cabinets are organized to within an inch of their life. I could probably use his help, but I'm gonna do it alone. Okay, so we just want a teaspoon of this. So what I'm using is, if I can find my teaspoon, is a pumpkin spice. It's a pumpkin pie spice mix that I made. Since I can't find my cinnamon, we'll just go with that. Ooh, that smells good. All right, now we're just gonna mix all these dry ingredients together. I'm breaking up our coconut a little bit where it's stuck together. So this particular recipe gives you two options. You can make like a looser granola, or if you want it clumpy, there's a little bit of different instructions. I like clumpy granola, so that's what I'm gonna do. So we've combined all of our dry ingredients. Now we're gonna mix up our wet ingredients and then mix them into our dries. So we're gonna start with, I'm just gonna get a bowl. 1/3 cup of sweetener, 1/3 cup of fat, and 1.5 teaspoons of whatever flavoring that you want. So this one is very user-friendly, I guess. You can make this really be whatever flavor profile that you want. So I am going to use maple syrup for this one. And you do want to use real maple syrup, not like an artificial store brand, processed, whatever. You want real maple syrup. And we need 1/3 cup. So I'm just gonna put this in a bowl. And I think for this one, I'm gonna go ahead and use coconut oil. And we want 1/3 cup of our coconut oil. And mine is partially solidified, which it normally is. So I'm gonna go ahead and put it in the microwave just for a few seconds to melt it down until I can stir it up. And then we're gonna stir that in with our maple syrup. And then you can use, as I said, 1½ teaspoons of whatever flavoring that you want. And I think I'm gonna go with an almond flavoring. The author suggests, well, she says that they really like orange blossom. I tried to find it and was not able to find it at my store, so I'm just gonna use almond. Okay, this recipe also calls for egg whites if you wanted to do the clumpy one, which, as I said, I did. All right, so we're just gonna whisk up our egg whites until they're kind of frothy. Okay, so we're going to pour in our sweetener and our fat, which is, in our case, is maple syrup and coconut oil. And we're going to mix that through. And then we're going to go ahead and pour our frothy egg white in and stir that through as well. So we want this, for this one, we want our oven to be at 280. Again, I'm using a cookie sheet with parchment paper. We're going to press this down. We want to get our layer as even as we can. All right, so now as soon as that other one comes out of the oven, we'll be able to change our temperature and stick this one in. All right, let's see how this one, ooh, yum, that looks good. Yep, I think this one's done. It's got a nice golden brown to it. Oh, the heat's burning my eyeballs. Oh my goodness. So this one is done. We've got a nice brown color to it. So we're gonna set it on some hot pads and let it cool. We're gonna turn the temperature down to 280. I'm gonna let the oven cool down just a bit and then we'll pop this batch in. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and get this in the oven. We're gonna bake this for, I think it said 35 or 45 minutes. We're gonna bake it for 45 minutes. We're gonna check it at 35, but we are not going to stir this batch. Then after that, we're gonna turn it off and leave the granola in the oven and let it cool in our oven. So I probably should have done this one last, but that's okay. Alrighty, our milk is down to 110 degrees. We want to add 3 to 4 tablespoons of a plain yogurt. It should not be sweetened. It should not have anything artificial in it. We want it to have active bacteria because this is what's going to help your new batch create a new, this is what's going to help your milk create a new batch of yogurt. Now, if you make your own yogurt regularly, you can save about a half a cup of every batch to use as your starter for the next batch. You can do that for a while. So let's just do, whoa, splash of milk everywhere. Actually, I'm just going to go ahead and add all of it. There's not much left. One bite. And then we want to just whisk that in. Now what we're going to do is put this back into our Instant Pot. We're not going to turn it on. Mine's not even plugged in anymore. We're going to put the lid back on. And we're going to wrap the top of this up with some towels. We're going to let this sit now for 8 hours, and the residual heat that we have in our milk and in our Instant Pot is going to finish processing our yogurt. So after 8 hours, we're going to remove everything. If we want to sweeten it, which I'm going to, I'm going to add probably some honey and some vanilla because I don't really like plain yogurt. But then that will give us the perfect thing to use with all of this granola that we are making. Okay, since this last batch of granola that I put in the oven has to cool in the oven, I'm going to take a little break. We're going to let the other 2 batches of granola cool. We're going to let this one bake and then cool. We'll just open the oven a little bit and let it cool down. And then we'll start the chocolate after that so that I can use the oven. So I'll be back in a little bit. All right, so we are going to get to work now on our chocolate granola. Our other one is cooled and I've got it out of the oven sitting to kind of harden up. So once again, we're going to start with our oats. Oops. Let's get this open. Yep, and we need 4 cups. Want a cup of finely chopped nuts, and I'm going to use walnuts in this recipe. So we're going to measure out a cup, and I'm just going to go ahead and chop this up. Have a food chopper that might make this easier, but we'll go ahead and just chop it with a knife for today. If I was chopping more than a cup, I would definitely get that food chopper out. We're going to add our walnuts in with our oats. Half a cup of coconut flakes. This one is optional for this recipe, and it doesn't say whether to use sweetened or unsweetened. I guess it doesn't matter since I only have it sweetened, but I'm going to go ahead and put that in there. And then we're going to add a half a teaspoon of salt. Mix these things up in our bowl. In our saucepan, we're going to mix together coconut sugar, cocoa powder, maple syrup, and coconut oil over medium heat. Half a cup of the coconut sugar. So we want half a cup of cocoa powder. Half a cup of maple syrup. And then half a cup of coconut oil. Oops. Now we're going to cook this over medium heat until our sugar is all melted. All right, we're going to turn off our heat. We're going to add about a teaspoon of vanilla. And stir that in. And then we're going to pour that over our dry ingredients. And we're going to stir this up. We want to go ahead and preheat our oven to 325. We've got our baking sheet with parchment paper, and we're going to put our mix on here. And we're going to spread it out just like all of our other batches into an even layer and press it down. And then once our oven is preheated, we're going to let that bake for about 25 minutes. Okay, our time is up on our chocolate. So now I've got a cup of chocolate chips, and we are just going to sprinkle that over the top. We're going to put this back in the oven for about 5 minutes. Let those chocolate chips melt. Alrighty. Now we're going to take our spatula. We're going to just mix all this up with the melted chocolate chips. And we're going to spread that back around and flatten it out. We're going to sprinkle just a little bit of salt flakes on here. Like that. And now we're just going to let this cool just like all the rest of them. When everything's cool, we'll go ahead and break them up and put them in some containers. Our yogurt still has about 5.5 hours before its time is up. So I'll be back when it's time to do the next step on our yogurt. And so I'll see you guys in just a bit. Okay, we still have a couple of hours left on our yogurt, but I'm going to go ahead and transfer this granola into some jars. So just gonna try and let this stay in, bigger chunks as much as possible. I'm throwing it all over the counter. And I'm gonna taste some of this. Ooh, chocolate is really good. Go ahead and put the rest of this chocolate that doesn't fit in my jars, put that in this little baggie, and I might eat it tonight as a snack just by itself because it's really good. This would be good on vanilla ice cream. I know that kind of defeats the purpose of healthy granola, but really good. This one that I'm doing now is the one that we left in the oven to finish cooling. And it is a little more chewy. So it's going to chunk up pretty well. Parchment paper doesn't quite cover this whole cookie sheet, so I have some pieces that are stuck on the tray a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and give a little taste of this one. This is the one we had almonds, I think sesame seeds, and I can't remember. This one's good. Not super sweet. So if you like yours with just a hint of sweetness, this one is a good option. Okay, so this one is the second one we made. It's the one that has the apricot in it. Oh, I'm throwing granola all over everything. Let's give this one a little taste though. Okay, this one is really good. This is the one I think that was the really low calorie. And it's not nearly sweet enough for me. The one we just did, it was of good sweetness. This one has almost no sweet flavor. So I would want to adjust this one for my own personal recipe just because I like mine a little sweeter. And this one also, most likely because of the lower sugar content, did not clump up nearly as well as the others. But that's okay because my goal in making this was to have it for putting in my yogurt. It does taste really good. It's just not sweet enough for me. Okay. is the first one we made. This one is the Homesteading Families version that we used cranberries in. Oh, darn it. And this one is clumping up pretty well. This one is the perfect sweetness for me. But if you like one of the other recipes and you want it more sweet or less sweet, you can adjust the sugar or other sweetener, whether you use honey or maple syrup. Okay, so I have one heck of a lot of granola here that I can use, but it's going to keep fairly well in these jars, up to 2 to 3 weeks in this, stored tightly closed in this container. But I can also take some to work when I go back next week. Actually, I'm on PTO this week that we're getting ready to start, but when I go back the following week, I can take some, I can share it with friends, I can share it with family. So now we're going to go ahead and wait for our yogurt to finish processing. We've got about 2 hours, 15 minutes, something like that, and then we'll be able to finish that out. So I'll be back when it's time to work on that last step. Okay, so it's been 8 hours. Our yogurt is definitely set up. It's pretty thick. I'm just going to whisk it a little bit. It smells so good. I am going to add some sweetener and some vanilla to mine. So I'm going to add a couple teaspoons. We're going to whisk that in. And I'm going to use some maple syrup. Now this you can kind of just eyeball. You really just want to use it until it is the sweetness that you want. So we're going to mix some in, and then I'm going to give it a taste and see. Oh, and this is, oh, that's still a little sour. All right, so I added some more. Let's give this another little taste. There we go, that's good. Okay, now, this is a little runnier than I thought it was before I stirred it up. The way that you can get this a little thicker is to let it strain through some cheesecloth. That will let the liquid the excess liquid drain out, and you will be left with a thicker, creamier yogurt. Now I have to figure out how I did this before. Okay, I don't have any cheesecloth. Well, I probably have cheesecloth, but I don't know where it is. I'm going to use one of these towels, which I've used before for things like this. So I'm just going to pour my yogurt into this cloth. I want to go ahead and get as much of that as possible out of our Instant Pot container. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to take this cloth and I'm just going to tie it so that it doesn't fall open. And I'm going to tie it to the handle of my pot here. Whoops. Oh my gosh, it's very heavy. So we're just going to tie this to the handle, and then we're just going to flip this lid so that it's, or flip the handle, I mean, so that it's like this. And so what we're going to do is just let this strain. There's already quite a bit of excess liquid in the bottom of my pot here. We're going to let this go an hour or so, and then we'll check the thickness. It doesn't take much to get that excess liquid out, and that will really thicken up your yogurt. And so we'll let this go an hour or so. I'll come back and check it, and we'll see how everything looks. Okay, I'm going to take a look at this. There's quite a bit of liquid in here, so hopefully this has thickened up the way that we would like it. That was really silly of me. I tied this in a knot and now I can't get it undone. All right. Okay, this is still pretty runny. I'm going to go ahead and dump this liquid. So this is how much I've gotten so far. So same thing, we're just going to tie this back up. And then we're going to tie it to our handle again, and we'll just let it keep draining. All right, so we'll pull this back over and we'll just let this keep draining. We'll probably let this go another couple of hours. Okay, good morning. It is the next day. I ended up going to bed. So this drained all night, and it's a lot drier. There's a lot of liquid in my pot that I was draining into. So we're going to go ahead and get this dumped out into our Instant Pot pan. So I'm just going to go ahead and squeeze this back out into my pan. Get as much as we can here. So we don't want to waste any of this. But it's very thick now. Whoops! It's very thick and creamy like you would expect your yogurt to be. And when you have an Instant Pot with the yogurt setting, you don't end up usually having to do this long of a drain, because the setting keeps the Instant Pot at the right temperature for the right amount of time. But this still works, and it still turns out delicious. Just takes a little more effort. I'm actually going to go ahead and open this towel up and try and use a spoon to scrape as much as possible out of this towel. There's quite a bit still stuck to the fabric. So I'm just going to kind of stir this up a little bit. Whoops! Throwing yogurt everywhere. Okay, so here is our yogurt. And I'm going to portion out some individual little portions that I can take to work with me. You can, of course, always just put this in one big container. That would work as well. But since I'm going to take this to work, and if I leave it in one container, I'm less likely to take it. If I put it in individuals, it's much more likely that I will grab one and just head to work with it. So these are 4-ounce jelly jars, which is the perfect amount for a yogurt. And hopefully before I make yogurt again, I can find my other Instant Pot in my storage unit and I won't have to mess with all this. But this is still fine. That's really good. Ooh, that is really good. Okay, so let's take a look at what we've got here. So we have our 4 different varieties of granola that we made. They were all delicious. They all just, of course, had a little different flavor profile, but they basically start with the same thing. You want your oats, you need a sweetener, and you need a fat. And then you can add into that whatever you want. Nuts, seeds, dried fruits. And you can kind of play around with your sweetener and the fats really to kind of get it to the sweetness and the clumpiness that you prefer. So I will definitely use these recipes again. Not for a while, obviously, because I have a ton of granola. But I will add all of these recipes to the description box below, as always, so you guys can check those out and give them a try if you like. Same with the yogurt. And I want to thank you guys for watching. I really appreciate it. This has been a fun video to make. I'm really excited about trying all of these granolas in some yogurt or in some ice cream. And if you guys like this video, I would appreciate it if you'd give it a nice thumbs up. If you're not currently subscribed to my channel, I would encourage you to do so. You can then get notified every time a new video drops, and which I try to do those Friday morning, 8 o'clock Central Time, so that you can be on the lookout for those. And again, just thank you guys very much for watching. I appreciate all of your support, and I will see you on the next video. Thanks, guys.